The Trek Geeks Podcast Network and the Divine Treasury are proud to have Fansets as its presenting sponsor. Stay tuned for a special discount code worth 10% off your order at fansets.com. Fansets, our pins have character.
This episode is also sponsored by Science Division, the makers of the world's first interactive Tribble. Stay tuned for a discount code to bring a Tribble into your home today. Science Division. Trouble's never been this fun.
The divine treasury is made of pure latinum.
From Quark's Rare Antiquities at Podfleet Command, this is the Divine Treasury. I am Mike Bovia, and I am joined by my host, Jamie Rogers. Jamie, we talked a lot offline about what's been going on in your week this week, but let's get down to the positive. Anything good happening this week?
Yeah, definitely some good stuff that we're going to be talking about very shortly, but I saw a shipment on its way to me that I'm extremely excited about. So but I don't want to give it away yet.
No spoilers.
No spoilers yet.
Save it for the registrar. All right. So before we get into our own special stuff, I want to let everybody know about some rare antiquities coming to the market very soon. Starting with, what's funny is when we posted our last episode, the day it posted, the Voyager documentary opened their Indiegogo campaign. So that opened on March 2nd. We are recording on March 14th. And as of right now, that total stands at almost $720,000. Those donations have far exceeded even what we left behind came up with. They have hit so many stretch goals. They are within $30,000 of their seventh stretch goal now.
No, it's crazy. I didn't anticipate it was going to get as much support. And not to say, I mean, I know people love Voyager, and I did not. I think people probably were maybe a little bit more hesitant with the Deep Space Nine documentary when it was first coming out, especially in light of other campaigns that we know about.
Yeah. Yep.
So to speak. And I think people were probably very pleasantly surprised with how well that Deep Space Nine documentary came out. That, boy, the people that are behind this one, it's absolutely incredible. But I'm really excited to see the new documentary. I do like Voyager. Obviously not as much as I like TNG, but I definitely have a place in my heart for Voyager. So I'm excited to see what they do. And plus, with the pandemic and everything that's been going on, people need something like this to entertain themselves, so to speak.
Right. Well, this documentary, like we mentioned, it's being done by the same people who did What We Left Behind. But they also were the producers for Adam Nimoy's For the Love of Spock. They worked on William Shatner's The Captains, the interviews with all of the different captains from the different series. So, I mean, they do have a track record of good stuff. So I think, like you said, Jamie, once people have seen, or once people saw what they were able to accomplish with What We Left Behind, it's like, now everybody wants to have a piece of this. So one of the cooler perks, for someone who isn't necessarily willing to lay down their entire bank account. So for $50, you can have your name on the website. Let's see. Your name will be in the official end credits. You get the Blu-ray DVD combo. You get some digital downloads of posters, some PDFs of call sheets. I mean, it's a pretty decent package for a one-time $50 donation. to have your name in the film itself. I mean, we know what it looks like from what we left behind. It's going to be a long list of people who have donated, but that's still pretty cool for only $50. I mean, you figure a Blu-ray is what, 20 to 30?
Yeah, probably 25 at least,
right,
for a documentary.
Yep. So, I mean, not a bad deal there. So speaking of Blu-rays and DVDs, we this week got a date on when Lower Decks will be beaming into our living rooms for us to own, and that is May 18th. So right now you can go out on Amazon and you can do a pre-order for that. And I neglected to pull up the price, but I believe it is in the 30s for the whole season. I was looking at the Steelbook because I have Steelbooks for all of my newer Star Trek, so I got to keep going with that. But yeah, can't wait. There's going to be a bunch of different.
I think there's going to be some deleted scenes in there too.
Yep,
I believe.
There you go.
Some extra special features.
Special features. That's what I was looking for.
No, I already pre-ordered my. I think it was like $32.99 or in that ballpark or something like that. But yeah, no, I'm really excited. I'm amazed that it's coming out as fast as it's coming out. I figured with COVID that some of these DVDs and Blu-rays would take a little longer in production to get out to us. So hey, props to them that they're getting the physical media out to us very quickly here.
Yeah. It seems like CBS is doing a lot of work on behind the scenes, special feature type stuff during production instead of waiting until the end and trying to call everybody back. They've got all of the stuff that they put on the Ready Room, which is, that is some cool stuff behind the scenes production that they give you. So, I would have to assume at this point, they've almost got everything just ready to burn to a disc and slap some artwork on it. One of the other things that I think some people will find pretty cool is there will be the option for you to watch the episodes without the beeps of censorship. So you can watch Lower Decks completely unedited as far as the dialogue goes.
Interesting. All right, so obviously there's a lot of new releases with Eaglemoss. So I'm going to kind of talk about some of the new releases in the Starships line. Most specifically, the XL collection. 2 new issues that are going to be coming out. The first one, I'm like completely thoroughly shocked is coming out. It's Relay Station 47. Now, for those of you that don't know what Relay Station 47 is, this was from one of the, what should I say, like the more maligned episodes of Star Trek TNG. I know it's one of Bill Smith's personal favorites.
Bill has already put in his subscription to make sure that he gets this version.
Yeah, I don't think so. But Relay Station 47 was from the much maligned TNG episode Equiel, for those of you that don't know. So I'm really kind of surprised by this one, Mike, I have to say. I mean, you think of all the XL choices they could have done, even if you think of it from a relay station. So, I mean, you could have done the Caretaker's Array. You could have done a full-size space dock. There's a lot of things you could have done before doing Relay Station 47, but they chose Relay Station 47. So, yeah.
When you look at it, it is a repurpose and it has a few pieces added onto it of the ship that they found at the end of season 1 in the neutral zone, with Ralph Offenhouse and our country singing buddy. Sonny
Tex.
Clemens.
Oh, Sonny
Clemens.
Sonny Clemens.
LQ Sonny Clemens.
Yep. So, like I said, interesting choice for the XL, but a new release nonetheless. Another release in the XL collection is the USS Bonatune. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's a Nebula class ship. I believe it was at the end of Voyager's Message in a Bottle. So always love the Nebula class, especially like on the Phoenix, in TNG. So that's a pretty cool design to see with the XLs for sure.
Yeah, those are pretty sweet.
All right. The other new release is a lot of releases in the books forum from Eaglemoss. So the first one, I believe there's 5 total releases that we're going to kind of go over. The first one that I want to talk about is the Borg and Delta Quadrant book, the Shipyards book. So this is going to cover obviously most of the smaller ships that took place in the Voyager and the Delta Quadrant. A lot of cool, interesting ones. I love some of the designs here, like the Krenim ship and some of the Vidian stuff. Really cool, interesting designs. So obviously they're going to really delve into some of these designs in this Shipyards book.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Hero Collector does some of the best work with putting out some of these reference books. I mean, they are the people that are making all of these ships for everybody to put on their shelves. So it makes sense that they would have some good reference books to go along with it. And I do kind of like the fact that, they take some of the information that they have from each individual ship and they're putting them into a combined volume. So that, maybe you don't want all of those ships, but you think it's cool to know the information about it, and just buy the book and then just buy the individual ships that you want for your shelves. So the next one of those books that we're talking about is another Shipyards book. So this is the Encyclopedia of Star Trek Starfleet ships. And this is going to be the second edition. This is from 2294 into the future. So it's not going to include Enterprise, but it looks like the first ship that's on here, it looks like is Discovery. That's the first one that's on the cover here. But it's going to feature stuff from season 3 of Discovery as well. So on the cover is Discovery with the separated nacelles. There's also the Zheng He from Picard on the cover, in addition to Voyager and Enterprise D and an Akira class ship. And it looks like Enterprise E is on there as well. And then right next to Voyager, the OG Voyager, is the 32nd century Voyager J. So that's pretty cool that, they've gone out and they've now added to this so that we've got the newer ships. The one disappointing thing is that there's nothing in here from Lower Decks. And Lower Decks had some pretty cool ships. Now, I think that being said, I have read a few articles about Eaglemoss and some interviews with Ben Robinson, and they are working on coming up with designs for the Lower Deck ships and how they want to do it. So that could be why it's kept out of this for now, because they don't have it in their series yet.
Yeah, and I've noticed too, and I know we've had discussions with other people. I think even when we were talking to Lou from Fansets, how their lead time when they're coming out with these ships is so much longer than some of the other licensees
Right.
to get the ship designs approved. And so it's probably coming down the pipeline here. It's just taking a little bit longer. Because Lower Decks hasn't been around that long. So
right.
I'm sure we're going to see some stuff coming out very shortly. But another book that we want to talk about here, another one of their long book series is the Designing Starships series. And this is going to feature art and ships from the Deep Space Nine series. So this is the 5th book in this series, and it's entitled Deep Space Nine and Beyond. So it's really going to showcase a lot of this concept art that we saw in Deep Space Nine. But what I'm interested to see in this book is the actual concept art of the actual station the Deep Space Nine station. So, many people obviously consider Deep Space Nine one of the best Star Trek series in terms of ship designs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's looking like they're really going to highlight some of this in this book here.
Yeah, it looks pretty neat. Says that there's going to be more than 30 ships in it. So, and you know what? Rittenhouse, the ships of Deep Space Nine has been something that a lot of different companies have focused on. When Rittenhouse did their complete Deep Space Nine series, one of the subsets was the ships of the Dominion War. So, I mean, I think people have been waiting for this because there's some pretty cool ship designs. I mean, shoot, Deep Space Nine itself is quite the design. So you throw all the other stuff in there, and I think it's going to be a book that people look forward to. So coinciding with the 55th anniversary of the original series, the Hero Collector is putting out a book that is different from what we are used to with them. So last year they put out a Voyager book that was similar to this. So this year they're putting out Star Trek: A Celebration. So it's going to be a collection of interviews, history, photos, and artwork from the original series. It's going to be released the week of the 55th anniversary. So the week of September 6th, that'll be coming out. But it's all kinds of archive interviews, recollections from the cast when they were filming. And then things that were done specifically for this book, interviews that were done, some research that was done specifically for the book. So look forward to seeing that. I think TOS sometimes gets lost in the shuffle nowadays because of everything new that's coming out. So it'd be cool to see what they come up with for this.
Yeah, definitely. And that brings us to our last book release here that we're going to talk about. It's Star Trek: The Next Generation Nerd Search. Yes, I said it correctly. Nerd Search. So this is the follow-up to the TOS edition. I believe that edition was called Quibbles with Tribbles was what it was called. So this is going to be your basic Where's Waldo book for TNG fans. Obviously more of the puzzle type challenges where they're going to have scenes from some of the shows and see if you can pick out the things that don't belong. So that's going to be an interesting and fun book. You're going to really need to be a fanatical TNG fan to really get the answers to some of these quizzes on there. So looking forward to that.
Will that be joining the Jamie Rogers collection? I mean, it's TNG.
It is TNG. So wasn't on the radar, but yeah, I'll probably end up getting it.
I might too, just because I like mine is not going to be I bought it, it's going on the shelf just for display. If I buy that, I'm buying it to do the puzzles inside of it, because I do like doing some of those puzzles.
Yeah, no, awesome.
All right. So back to some out of this world merchandise, if you will. So the Star Trek shop on StarTrek.com has begun launching a new series of backpacks. Now, you would think that this would be for kids. However, I do not carry a briefcase at work. I use a backpack to carry my laptop around. So if it was big enough and sturdy enough, I would get one of these for my laptop. So the first one that pops up on there is a Borg cube, which looks pretty stinking cool. But if that's not good enough for you, they have a variation of a Discovery uniform from the first and second seasons and most of the third season. It has the traditional Delta, not the 32nd century Tricom Delta. It has, they're coming out with a TOS version and a TNG version, as well as a Starfleet Academy version, and then lunch boxes. Yeah, that's not really my forte, but hey, some people love to carry around lunch boxes. There'll be TOS uniform styles as well as a TNG one. But basically what it is it's the uniform colors with the division badges for TOS, and then uniform or the division colors and the comm badge for TNG. And then finally, they round it all off with a Borg cube style lunchbox.
You know, it's interesting that you talked about Borg Cube, because I'm going to talk about the last item. I'm actually, believe it or not, very excited about this. Never thought I would be excited about this. But the makers, the name of the company is Cherry Tree, and they are coming out with the Borg Cube record player. All I have to say is resistance is futile on this one, but it's really sharp looking. It's got the Picard logo on there. You know, not something that I ever thought I needed in my collection, but you know, I may just have to get one, because I've actually gotten a few records, a few vinyls as of late, for some of my favorite Rush albums. So, I may have to see what they sound like on the Borg record player, but it's really sharp. And this company, they're a great company. I actually met them out in Las Vegas. I believe the last time I went out there in 2019, and they were super cool. Bought some t-shirts from them, for me and my son. And they also make the Borg Cube PC, which is really cool and really interesting. But yeah, definitely looking forward to that record player.
Yeah, this thing looks pretty stinking cool. I don't have any LPs, but you know, if the price was right, I might get something like that for display, and then maybe pick up some vinyls, because you can get them anywhere now. So it's not like years before where you had to go searching for them. They're being, you know, whenever somebody puts out a new album, it comes out as a vinyl as well as a CD now. So yeah, so look for that. That is so cool looking. I can't wait. Okay, so the time has come for us to get into the things we have received for our collection since the last episode. So Jamie and I were talking, and we have a lot of stuff that has come in. So I'm going to let Jamie start off.
So I actually, you know, I know we were talking about Eaglemoss not too long ago, but I actually just got in. It was a special edition release that they did intermittently between, you know, the regular Starships collection. It's actually the space stock, and I must say, it's really cool. I really like it. I really like it. It displays very nicely, and to be honest with you, it kind of brought back memories of thinking of seeing Star Trek 3 as a kid when the Enterprise first went into that space stock. So I was very, very happy to get that. So that's pretty cool. I did also, I know you ordered this for me. I haven't actually got it yet, but I know it's come in from Fan Sets, the episode 8 Picard pin. So very excited about putting that up with my other 7 pins. I did add a few things to my Star Trek customizable card game sets. I am now complete on the first edition. I did pick up some of the little subsets that I needed. I did pick up the last set that came out. I believe it was in 2005. It was the 18 card foil set, the Enterprise collection. So it was the first edition style cards, but in like a foil design, and it was 18 cards about the Enterprise crew. But the big acquisition that I got was I did pick up the Star Trek customizable card game All Good Things set. And this was the White Whale as far as that first edition goes. One of the last sets to come out. It's 41 cards, but basically this set tied up all the loose ends that existed in the first edition of the Star Trek customizable card game set. It had the Admiral Janeway card in there, the Admiral Riker, Christopher Pike, the bluegill infestation, from Conspiracy, Kobayashi Maru scenario. And I kind of liked it. It had some of the cooler ships like the USS Drake, the Grissom, the Pegasus. And like I said, this basically all those interesting little game plots that existed that were never closed up. They kind of closed it up in this 41 card set. Came out in 2003. But what happens when this set came out, Decipher really didn't anticipate the demand and the interest that would exist with this set. So they quickly sold out of this set when it first came out. So this one is very difficult to find, and it demands a very high price tag. So obviously I knew this would be kind of the last one that I would get. And, but now I have it, and the set is complete.
So it not only tied up loose ends, but it also tied up all kinds of assets too on your end.
Yeah. So like I said, now I'm pretty much, I am complete with the first edition. Like I said, I don't have any of the foils other than that Enterprise set, but I have all the regular issue cards. So I'm pretty excited about that. Other thing that I got, a very interesting piece. I know I had talked to you about this, I think about a week ago. But I got, it was a case incentive from the 2011 complete Star Trek TNG series of trading cards, series 1 from Rittenhouse. So it's actually a Gene Roddenberry original business card, a blue business card. And I neglected to actually measure this out. I believe it's like 4x6 or 5x7. It looks like almost like a photo, but it's got the business card inside of the actual card. So pretty cool. Nice, cool. It was something that I never really had any interest in getting before, but I thought it'd be kind of a cool little piece to add to my collection. So definitely going to give that to you pretty soon to have you put it in some sort of cool matting. But yeah, so I got that as well. And I think that's pretty much it. So what did you get in your collection there?
Well, just about everything that I got was card related. Actually, everything I got was card related. And what has happened over the past month or so is I've kind of started thinking about how I want to direct some of my collecting of cards. So, I mean, this whole card thing started back in 91 when I got the Impel 25th anniversary set. So for me, it made sense. If I've got the 25th anniversary set, I should start looking and finding out what I've got for all the other, or what is out there for the other anniversary sets. So I believe on the last episode, I talked about the 30th anniversary metal cards that I picked up. So I went out and I ordered the 35th anniversary and the 40th anniversary base sets that were out there. Pick those. I mean, not a whole lot of money at all. I mean, we're talking maybe $20 total for both of them. Just kind of wrapped up some things that I didn't have in the collection. I've really gotten into some of the metal case topper cards that have come out for some of the sets recently. So I had picked up the Discovery ones for season 2. And then went out and saw that they had a couple for season 1 as well that were pretty cool. So I picked those up. For Emily, I picked up a Connor Trenier autograph card from the season 3 set of Enterprise. I got it for next to nothing, which was awesome. And it surprised her. Picked up some of the promo cards for the season 2 Discovery set. Stuff that if I had thought ahead and pre-ordered, I would already have, but I didn't. I have finished off my collection of those acetate cards. I thought I would just pick them up as display cards, but I liked them too much and I wanted to complete the subset So I picked up the rest of those, including, so it hasn't come in yet, but I have ordered the Rittenhouse Rewards Spock in his Starfleet uniform one, which is very rare because it takes 1,500 points from wrappers to redeem for that reward. So there weren't a whole lot of those that went out. So so in this interview today, we're going to talk a little bit about the animated series and about how, as a television show, it kind of looks like garbage. But if you are just freeze framing stuff for the art, it looks very sweet. So Rittenhouse in 2003 put out an entire series of the animated from the animated series. So I am one subset away from completing the entire mini master on that. So that would be the base set and all of the subsets minus the complete autographs. And, you know, I think the autographs are cool, but autographs I kind of just have singular focuses on. So that one subset that I have left is the they released a mini cell for every episode. So there's 22 cards with a little strip of film in it from the episode. That's pretty cool, but it's, you know, for a 24 card set, it's kind of expensive, but I already have my eyes on one. So I'll probably have that by the next episode. That's about it. I mean, I got a bunch of other things, some autograph cards. I picked up a Scott Bakula autograph card, focusing on all of the captains, like any captain, not just the hero captains, but like, you know, I'll have even the low ranking captains there that nobody likes, like Captain Keogh from Deep Space Nine. You know, if I can find him, which I'm sure there is one, I'll eventually pick it up. Just if they portrayed a captain, I'm going to see if I can get a card for him. And it's going to take a long time because there's a bunch of them out there. But, you know, some of them are cheaper. Some of them are going to be real expensive. So, you know, we'll just see how it goes. I'm in no hurry to complete it. It's more of just like a fun little hobby for me to do.
Yeah, no, it's cool. You know, I totally forgot to talk about the thing that I talked about in the introduction. When I was talking about the things that I've gotten, I just found out that finally, after like 2 years of waiting here, that my Enterprise D build, so the first 2 issues in the Enterprise D build have just shipped out 2 days ago. So super, super excited about that. Like I said, I've been waiting 2 years to get those first 2 issues. So they should be coming in another week or so, and real eager to see how the first few pieces of my Enterprise D are going to look. So excited about that. And one other thing I did forget to mention too, is the actual release date for the Star Trek Picard trading card set did get pushed back to March 24th. So a little disappointed about that. But as we drop this episode, it looks like that, you know, we'll be getting those cases probably next week as we drop this episode. So that's another fun thing that we're looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And well, let's put it this way. I'm looking forward to it, but at the same time, kind of nervous because I feel like it's going to take me down a Jamie Rogers road where I may have to buy cases in the future. I was already thinking about this, and whenever, you know, I've got Discovery season 1 and season 2, the base set. Slowly, I've been picking up a lot of the subsets. Again, I kind of like the thought of putting together the mini masters in a lot of cases instead of just trying to seek out all of the autographs on it, because especially now, it seems like there are a ton of autographs and different variations of the autograph. with last season or with this past season of Discovery. They've got some cards with where they've put quotes on the autographs. So that I think would be a little too hard to do, but the mini masters I think is pretty cool to try and put together. And I do pick up the autograph cards. I do like those, but I don't feel the need to have them all.
Yeah, it's funny you even say that, because I was actually looking at, because I know you told me that you asked me the other day if I had if I had the Discovery Season 2 set. And of course I said, well, no, I don't have it because I haven't delved into Discovery cards. But of course, you put me down a rabbit hole of, well, if I got Season 2 of the base set, now I'm going to need Season 1. So I just, I happen to be looking at Season 1 stuff. And it was funny because I was actually kind of like amazed. I can't believe how many variants they had of the uniform cards in that Season 1. Like they literally
Season
had
2 also. Season 2 also.
Season 1 had like 3 variations. Like they had the logo, the rank, like they had like
the
3
ribbing.
different 3 different variations of every swatch card, which I'm like, oh my word, I'd be driving myself nuts.
It's cool. And I kind of feel like in order to acclaim a mini master set, I kind of feel like if you have, if the checklist says, card 1 to card 20, and you have 1 through 20, you've achieved the mini master. The master is the one that goes out there, and if card 15 has 3 variations, you got to have all 3 variations of card 15.
Yeah. It's like Dark Lord of the Sith master kind of.
Yeah. But yeah, they did do the same thing in Season 2 as well. It's mostly on the uniforms themselves. So they did pull. I've got a couple of them right now. I've got a Michael Burnham and I've got Captain Pike, where they have swatches from their EV suits from episode 1, and those are kind of cool. You can see the detail in them. But then they did the same, when it came to uniforms, they have like a variation where it's got the deltas on it. And then they have a variation where it's just blue. With the Enterprise crew uniforms, they have just the swatch with the color. And then they have a swatch that has like a seam ribbing on it, so that, you can tell that they're not just pulling it off of something. But, we also talked to Steve from Rittenhouse. We know that they're not just coming up with something. He gets the real stuff.
No, I know. And I hate to preview that episode because I know that's going to be coming up in the near future here. But I mean, even we can even see how, because of the pandemic, he wasn't able to do a lot of that stuff with this Picard, which is why he had to go, obviously heavy with the autographs, which once again, I like the autographs more anyways. Usually if I'm getting like a uniform or costume card with a swatch, it's usually because it's got an autograph on the card too. So I'm okay with the heavy on the autograph side, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I also noticed that they upped the sketch cards, which are pretty popular with people too. So I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, hopefully it doesn't lead me down a road of bankruptcy and despair. But
I think the hardest part is going to be like waiting for us to like get together to open them up. I think that's going to be like the hardest part. Like I'm going to be like, can I just open one box?
Well, it's definitely going to probably be a Zoom thing that we're opening stuff together. I bet it makes it easier for us to be able to post it on YouTube anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
We'd like to take a moment to talk about Fansets, the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network and the Divine Treasury.
Now, by definition, Fansets is a small business, but I tell you, the service and the products that they provide to us Star Trek fans is anything but small. They are big business to us collectors. They have all sorts of offerings for us, all sorts of different fandoms, including Scooby-Doo, DC Comics, Batman 66, which I have in my collection, and Harry Potter.
They also have a fandom that I think some of you people know about. It's a show from the 60s called Star Trek. Yeah, they have over 300 licensed pins for Star Trek. You can get badges. And those badges can either be pins, or now they're even doing magnetic backing for cosplay. You can get micro crew of your favorite characters. You can get anniversary sets when they're put out as master sets. You can get episode pins. There are so many things that Fansets offers to us as collectors. Just go out to their website and peruse through their catalog of things and have all of your collecting dreams fulfilled. Each month on the 1st and the 15th, they're releasing new pins. So on the 15th of this month, available are the releases of Michael Burnham from the Women of Trek line. That will complete the re-release of the Series 1 of that Women of Trek. Also, so that we can complete our Series 2 of the Women of Trek line, Soji Asha will be released as part of that Women of Trek Series 2 line. And if the completist in you is not yet fulfilled, or shall we coin a phrase, completed, you can complete your Picard episode pin collection, as episode 9 and 10 will be released on the 15th this month.
Definitely going to be putting an order in on the 15th. But
oh, yeah.
As a listener to this show, you can receive 10% off your next order from Fansets by using the exclusive code DIVINE, that's DIVINE, at checkout. And remember, if you put $30 or more in your cart, you get free shipping in the US.
Fansets. Our pins have character. And we thank Fansets for being the presenting sponsor of the Divine Treasury and the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. On each episode of the Divine Treasury, we look for a collector of all things Star Trek, and we see what has gotten them into the hobby and what they have. So for our guest on this episode, we have the host of Weekly Trek on the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. He's also been a guest on multiple episodes of Trek Ranks with our episode 3 guest, Jim Morehouse. We welcome Alex Perry to the Divine Treasury. How are you, Alex?
I am well, thank you, and thrilled to be here.
Awesome. Well, we're thrilled to have you. When we were talking about all of the podcasts and as we were getting stuff set up, that was right around the time that you had posted pictures of your display cases.
Yes.
And I said to Jamie, I said, we need to have Alex on. And the one thing that I told him is, do you remember the storage tanks in Disaster? He said, yep. I said, Alex has them.
Yep, that's right.
We're definitely going to talk about those later for sure.
All right. So we'll start where we always do with this blessed exchequer process and see, first off, is there anything outside of Star Trek that you collect?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that Star Trek is probably solid 70 to 80% of the overall stuff that I collect, but there's certainly things outside of Star Trek. So I do have a collection of Stargate novels, of Star Wars novels. I have a collection of history and politics books. I collect campaign buttons from presidential campaigns. I have a little set of... I don't know if you remember them in the like, They were very big in the late 60s, early 70s, these little figures of US presidents made by Marx. They made George Washington through Richard Nixon, and then some enterprising 3D modeler has made the remaining presidents.
Oh, wow.
So,
Cool.
They even have a Joe Biden, so I'm fully up to date.
Huh.
And then also, since we are still, Christmas was not too long ago, I am a bit of an old woman in some ways. I have a Christmas village. And so I collect pieces for the village buildings and people and stuff. And I set that up every Christmas.
Don't put it on me to dispute you calling yourself an old woman. However, my mother-in-law, I think she had been collecting village stuff since she was in her 30s. When we added on to the house and she moved into the in-law apartment, there was boxes upon boxes, and none of them were toted because they're all in
different
size boxes.
Yeah,
yep.
right.
Yep.
Was it Department 56?
I have no idea. She gave a lot of it away to her sister because she's in such a smaller, she moved down from a house to an apartment, basically.
Yeah. I started collecting in an apartment and had very little room to put them out, but this is the first year I'm in a house. So this Christmas I managed to get about 70% of the houses that I own out onto display, which I was pretty pleased about.
When you said campaign buttons, my ears perked up because we just watched National Treasure again recently, and
yes,
that's the first thing that popped into my head was the George Washington campain buttons from that.
Yep.
I remember. What's interesting, I remember as a young kid too. I loved presidential stuff too. I had one of these. I had this collection of. It was presidential coins. I think we got them at it was Sunoco or Shell gas station or whatever, but it had this blue, but I definitely, I feel you on the presidential collecting stuff.
Yeah. The earliest button I have is Eisenhower. And then obviously, all the major presidential candidates, the actual, the ones who were on the ballot on election day. But then I also have a bunch of the, wannabe presidential candidates from various different years. I'm actually and I had a collection of bumper stickers too. And I actually had a Joe Biden for President 2008 bumper sticker when he went out after the Iowa caucuses, to getting 1.5% of the vote. And it took me a while to find it. And I got this years. I mean, this was in 2009 when I got this, it was right after the election. And so now it actually, it's not just a complete wannabe has been, because he's going to be the president.
Right. Oh yeah. I bet you that thing's super valuable now.
Yeah, it might be.
It's like Dewey defeats Truman.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Well, obviously I love some of the stuff that you've talked about already, Alex, but we know why we're here. We're going to talk
do it.
Let's talk about the Star Trek stuff. I love the stuff I see behind you. I see the Eaglemoss stuff. I see the novels. So let's get right into it. What are some things that you like to collect in your Star Trek collection?
Yeah, you name it. At some point, I have probably collected it when it comes to Star Trek. Playmates figures, Playmates ships, collectible card game. I had some of the trading card sets, the books, soundtracks. What else? The Attack Wing ships, the Eaglemoss ships, the Diamond Select ships. Actually, Diamond Select figures is probably one of the few things that I haven't dabbled in. Funko Pops. Just looking around the room trying to remind myself what's in here. Prop replicas. I mean, obviously, I'm sure we'll get on to talking about the screen news stuff at some point, which has been a big focus of my collection over the last few years. Art, Star Trek art. I can pretty much hang and talk about just about anything because I don't still have all of it. I've gone through phases and sort of, dumped stuff over time as my tastes and interests have changed, or perhaps I've come to my senses about some stuff. But over the 25 years of collecting Star Trek stuff in some way, shape, or form, my I have lots of things have passed through my hands. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, I hear you there. I had a pretty hardy collection of the books, and we made a move from a bigger house to a smaller house, and then we moved into a big house again. But in the midst of making the move to the smaller house, I tried to pare down to, just the stuff that I think I ended up paring it down to stuff that was outside of the given universe. So anything that was related to Pike or the Lost Era novels, stuff along those lines. So, but yeah, we have stuff. We let it go. We long for it later. It's a never-ending cycle.
Yeah, for me,
us.
the two things that I wouldn't necessarily say I regret having collected, but I went through this period of getting all of the attack wing ships. I had nobody to play the game with. I have no idea why I was obsessed with getting every single one of these ships. Originally, I had this vision in my mind. They made this great Deep Space Nine model. I was going to get Deep Space Nine. And then I was like, well, wouldn't it be cool to make it into a little diorama and have a couple of the smaller ships around it, like the Defiant and a Klingon bird of prey. So it's sort of, late season 6, early season 7 style, Dominion War era. And so and they made the little Bajoran freighter. So I thought, oh, that would look cool too in this little diorama. And then once I had the 3 of them, I was like, oh, well, now obviously I've got to get all of them. So I bought all of them, quickly came to my senses, and then promptly sold them all. The other one was the Playmates figures. I mean, I've been a Star Trek fan since I was 6 years old, and Playmates action figures were sort of my entree to the collecting world. And obviously, being a kid, I took them out of the box and played with them and loved them. And then some of them are sitting on one of these shelves behind me. But at a certain point, when I was in my early 20s, I went through this period of being like, oh, well, I want a new Playmates action figure collection where they're all still in the box. And so I ended up with 4 or 5 totes full of action figures that were still in the box. And, what do you do with that? And so, and I was in this small apartment.
No, I was gonna say, it's so amazing that you're telling that story, because it's identical to me. I did the exact same thing. I had all the Playmates, I had the bridge, I had everything, right? And then literally 5 years ago, I just had this epiphany where I'm like, I'm going to buy all the sets of the Playmates figures in the box. Yeah. And they're all sitting in white bins in my back room, not even displayed, but they're just there. Yep. I have them all. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's me completely.
And I can attest to that because I've seen it.
At least with the Eaglemoss ships, you can take them out of the box and then very easily put them back into the box again. But the Playmates figures, it's in or out, right? They're in the box, and then once you take them out of the box, they ain't going back in the box again. So I have since sort of decided that actually what I was really looking for was that sentimental attachment to those particular figures that I had when I was a kid. So on a recent trip back to my parents' house in the UK, I fished them out of storage and brought them back here. And there's this seller online who makes Playmates action figure accessories that Playmates itself never actually made. It's called Triple Fiction Productions. Yep. So he makes command chairs and sickbay bio beds, and he's got a 10 forward, and he's made some really elaborate stuff. He's made the whole next generation transporter room, next generation observation lounge, which I may have paid some money to pick up. But when you have these sort of out of the box figures, it's nice to have, these sort of little pieces that you can display them with. So you can't quite see it in this shot, but there we go. There's 10 forward with the next generation crew right there. So
that's wild.
It's a nice way to display the figures that I have, that I do have a sentimental attachment to, rather than, ones that I just want.
Now, Alex, I wanted to ask you back about the customizable card game cards. Were you a big player? Did you playing them, or you just pretty much collecting them?
It was collecting them. This was like right back I mean, I was probably 11 years old. This was probably 99, 2000. I remember the original game was out, and then a number of the expansions were coming online, the Dominion War expansion and the Klingon one and the Borg one. And I guess there was the shot where I was managing to get the kind of packs of cards, and so I was enjoying collecting them. I only thought of it because when I made that trip back to my parents' place to sort of rifle through the storage bins, I found them all sitting in a bag. I didn't bring them back with me this trip because I have no idea what I would do with them. But I had probably had about 500 by the end, though there were a lot of repeats in that.
Well, you caught my fancy when you talked about the guy that makes the custom bridge sets and stuff like that, because I have had discussions with our mutual friend Thad about that.
Yes,
because he's picked up the Voyager Bridge, and that is something that is lacking from my collection, because I collect the captain's chairs with the captains.
Yep,
and Playmates made a Defiant chair with Cisco, and then it all stopped there.
Right,
and then Diamond Select made some of the newer ones, which, hey, that's great. And they look beautiful,
right?
But no Janeway.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Got to go for it.
Yeah. Well, how do you think Thad found out about that in the first place?
There we go. All right. So you kind of mentioned that, if you will, the Playmates figures were your gateway drug almost into this collecting. So that's kind of what got you into the collection side of things there. Was there an episode or maybe even one of the movies that you were sitting there and you were watching it and you just said to yourself, I got to own something that connects me even more to this franchise, be it through Playmates or however it was?
Yeah, I remember that it was very early on in me being a fan. I mean, I was 6, 7 years old, and at that point you were really only getting the episodes like once a week, or whatever, at like grew up in the UK, so at 6 o'clock on BBC Two on a Tuesday, I think, or something like that. And obviously I was really enjoying that, but this was sort of pre-cable. It was certainly pre-DVD. The VHSs were sort of available, but like I was a little kid, I was reliant upon my parents to buy me the occasional VHS in order to have, on-demand access to Star Trek. And so I sort of saw those Playmates figures at the time as being a way of creating new episodes, because you could get the figures and you could play with them and you could create these Star Trek stories that were your own stories that would kind of tide you over until you got the next episode on TV. And I didn't know they existed until I think it was a birthday present. My parents got me that from that original 92 set of the Next Generation bridge crew, and there was the Klingon and the Romulan and the Borg and the Ferengi. They got me the Captain Picard, and they got my brother, who was not a Star Trek fan, so this was not a great present for him. They got him Geordie LaForge. So of course Geordie LaForge became my Geordie LaForge, and then and his visor disappeared because it was the original run of them. The later run they glued it onto the figure.
It was removable.
But the earliest run, it was removable before they figured out it was a choking hazard because it was 92 and they didn't think about that kind of thing. So it became mine. So I have this Geordie LaForge that doesn't have a visor. I actually just bought a loose Geordie LaForge precisely so that I could remove his visor and stick it on the one that I've had forever as a way of sort of reuniting the figure.
That's awesome, because I have on my bridge the same thing. I have Geordie at the engineering station of the bridge.
Yep.
No visor on, so he's definitely like, I don't know, he's feeling braille or doing something back there, but he's got no visor on.
In my head, it was always that it was like, first contact era Geordie, where he doesn't need the visor anymore. But yeah, I mean, that bridge play set, I got that for probably my 8th birthday, and we were on holiday down in France, and we drove down there because my grandmother owned a house in the south of France, and my parents had this big bridge box, and I sort of knew what was in it, and I was so excited about the fact I was going to get this Playmates bridge set, and I wore the heck out of that thing. I mean, especially after Generations came out and the whole Enterprise crash sequence, and then I figured out that like you could basically like crash the Enterprise as many times you wanted and have the chairs flying everywhere and the consoles flying everywhere. I mean, that was a real, I played out a lot of Star Trek Generations sort of reduxes on that bridge playset with all of the figures that I had.
That bridge playset was just even to this day, like that, it's just one of the best things they ever made. Now, did you also get the transporter too?
Yes, I had the transporter. The only one I didn't get, and at some point I would really love to own, was the engineering set that they did for Generations. I remember coveting that and thinking, I really, really want that. But never had the opportunity to actually get it. It's one of those things where sometimes it pops up on eBay and I'll sort of add it to my wish list and be like, this could be the time. It could be now, right? Fulfill those 20, those almost 30-year-old dreams. But I've not quite pulled the trigger on it yet.
It's funny, the story you told about you getting Picard and your brother getting Geordi, and he's not interested because I'm a little bit older than the both of you, so my parents got us the Galoob action figures for TNG back when the series first started.
Yep.
And they bought the whole set, and because it was only they bought the whole Starfleet set.
Uh-huh.
And there was only the 6 characters, so they split it in half, and I got 3 and my sister got 3. Well, guess who has all 6 of them now?
Yeah, right. I assume it was that sort of parental kind of thing of like, well, if we get one, we have to get the other one, even if the other, doesn't give a hoot about what it is.
Well, and I think in his heart of hearts, my dad knew they were all going to go to me anyway, so
right.
He made sure that he got the complete set, at least of the Starfleet characters, and they made Geordi LaForge with the visor that couldn't come off.
See, they were ahead of the curve, 3 or 4 years before Playmates came to the market.
Except they were tiny figures.
Yes.
And then they just stopped, which was unfortunate because I was totally into it, and I got the. Oh, go ahead.
Have you read the TrekCore did 2 pieces a few years ago where they went and talked to the original Galoob designers about what the plans for the line had been, and there were some really cool ideas that they obviously never did, but they developed concept art for and actually even showcased at Toy Fair, I think in 1988 or 1989.
Right, because you guys had in that article pictures of the prototype of the Wesley Crusher, right?
Prototypes of the Wesley Crusher, yeah, which actually occasionally pops up on eBay. I mean, it's
I thought
massively expensive, but yeah, there is at least one that has been kind of out there on the secondary market for a while. But then also some of the play sets they were planning to do. I mean, they were planning to do a bridge play set of their own. They also had this vision of doing. It was basically like the Enterprise above a planet, and it was a little bridge, and it was a little transporter room, and it was like a planet piece, but it was all one play set that you got as a single piece. I mean, it was really quite, for the day, bold and imaginative, which I assume is probably part of the reason why they did not ultimately go ahead with it.
That section of 7-year-old Jamie's brain right now is doing flips because he's like, oh, what could have been?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I still got to get that Galoob set. I see it at the toy vault every time I go in there, and I'm like, oh, is today going to be the day I spring for it?
Well, I thought you had gotten them all.
No, I haven't gotten it yet.
Oh.
I'm into the Funko Pops right now, so I'm like,
yep.
I only have so much Latinum to go around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're in the same place with me as that Generations engineering set. It's like you want it, but it's like it's other things to do right now.
So Alex, I wanted to ask you because you obviously touched on TNG and things like that. Was TNG your series?
Yeah, I'm a fan of everything. There's not a Star Trek that I don't like, with the exception of the animated series, but who cares about the animated series? Sorry, Aaron. TOS, TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, Discovery, Picard. I love it all. If you ask me what my favorite was, I would say The Next Generation, just because that was my first show. It was the one for me. If you ask me what I thought the best Star Trek was, though, I would say Deep Space Nine is the best, even though it's not my favorite. But again, it's like there's so little in it in terms of, you know, like the rankings between them. It's not like I'm like, oh, well, I only watch these two shows and then these other two shows can pound sand. I'm very much I just like your previous guest, Jim Morehouse, I am an apologist for all Star Trek. So, you know, it's all fair game as far as I'm concerned.
Well, except for the animated series, which I believe in his rankings, he only had one that was decent, and that was Yesteryear, if I remember correctly.
Yes. He and I have similar opinions about that.
Yeah, I mean, I know the stuff from the animated series. I do probably apologize for it more than others. But yeah, I mean, there's a reason why that is what is left in my daughter's watching of Star Trek to prevent her from being a completist, because every time it comes up, she's like, nope, let's watch the other one.
You know, I mean, the sad part about it is there were some good concepts that were actually introduced.
Sure.
There's some good canon things, you know, like Tiberius and things like that were actually introduced but it was so poorly executed.
Right.
You know, I just felt like I watched Lower Decks and I'm like, this is great.
Right.
It could have been done better than it was.
And I like many of the concepts from the animated series that they have since sort of ported into live action or into like Lower Decks, right? So, you know, the stuff around like Spock having been read Alice in Wonderland 2 as a child, and, you know, some of the aliens that showed up in Lower Decks. Like, I like all of that. You know, there's a lot of kind of great ideas behind the animated series, but Jamie, as you say, it's the execution for me is just so atrociously abysmal that on the animation front particularly, it's gorgeous art, but like it shouldn't all be still art, right? It's supposed to be animated. There's supposed to be a little bit of life and a little bit of zhuzh to it, and like, you know, I think if you're just looking at pictures of like screen caps, it looks great, but then when you're watching it, you're just like, oh, this is so lifeless.
Yeah. My father has had the opportunity over the years to come across a few of the original cells from the animated series, and man, they display so beautifully.
Oh, I'm sure.
But you're right. You know, I went back with some of them because I put a frame together for him of a couple of them. I was like, all right, I want to narrow down what episode this is from. And it was disappointing. It was disappointing.
Right. Good luck trying to figure it out, because they reuse those cells in, you know, like some of the shots just appeared like 4 times an episode, every episode exactly the same.
Yep. The bridge overhead. Scotty using the transporter. With Kyle's mustache, even though it wasn't Kyle, it was Scotty that was there. Yeah. So. Now let's take some time to talk about our friends at Science Division. They are the ones that have made the world's first interactive Tribble that you can control with your smartphone.
Jay and Kaylee are collectors too, so they've put all the love that you can imagine and expect from a fellow collector into this product.
When you download the Section K7 app, you can give your Tribble a name, such as the code word that we will be giving you later. You can assign it to a ship, and you can even put it into different modes. So you can have it at ease, where it just likes to purr at you. You can have it on duty, where it will every now and then squeal. Or you can have it on watchdog mode to make sure that your co-host isn't stealing your collectibles. So, even though it has all of these different features, including being able to attack you, we all know in the end...
Children are dangerous.
As an exclusive for our listeners, you can receive $5 off your very own Tribble when you use the code Cyrano at checkout. That is CYRANO at checkout.
Science Division. Trouble's never been this fun. And we thank our friends at Science Division for sponsoring this week's show.
All right, so now, Alex, let's get to the fun part. What is the thing you're really focusing on right now in your Star Trek collection?
So, for me right now, it's really the screen use, production made pieces that I have in my collection. I pretty much have all the books. I buy the new ones that come out. Eaglemoss, the subscriptions, they sort of, shoot them to me every, month or so. But the one where I spend, sort of most of my time looking is for this production made stuff. And for me specifically, I don't collect costumes because my wife would kill me if I had a bunch of creepy mannequins with Star Trek costumes on them. But I do collect props. I collect props from the show. I also collect like badges and insignia and patches because I like the sort of those sort of I like the symbology of Star Trek, and you get a lot of that in the badges and the pins, and they're also small and so easy to collect a few of them, and I have more than a few of them at this point. But it's an interesting hobby because it's really quite different from a lot of other collections of like collectibles because, for most things, there's a finite universe of them, right? You've got 50 Playmates. Well, it wasn't 50 Playmates. It was 150 Playmates action figures or something like that. Felt like 300 Playmates action figures. And there are multiple ones of each action figure, right? So like even the rarest stuff, your Tapestry Picards, etc. Like there's still 1,701 of them. But like the props, it's really different because there's sort of no end to the universe. I mean, when Enterprise ended in 2005, CBS they had a giant warehouse full of props and costumes. Basically, everything that was built for the show from the movie era all the way through to the end of Enterprise, they kept all of that stuff in just an enormous warehouse because they weren't sure when they might want to use that stuff again. And they did frequently, right? Like these are the Voyagers. They go back to the Enterprise D and they pull the old costumes out and they pull the old props out and they pull the old pieces of 10 forward out. And like, they didn't actually have to rebuild a huge amount of stuff in order to do those Enterprise D pieces because they already had them there. But then when Enterprise is off the air, they're like, oh, well, we have this giant warehouse and it is costing us millions of dollars to maintain this stuff. Rather than throw it all away, which is what we would otherwise be inclined to do, why don't we try and make some money off of it? So first of all, they kind of picked out what they considered were all the primo pieces, and they gave them to Christie's auction house. And so in 2006, there was this auction, and it was sort of all the major stuff, right? So it was the 6-foot Enterprise D filming model, or the Enterprise A filming model from the movies, or like Picard's Resican flute from the Inner Light, like the original brass one that was sort of the close-up hero prop. And they said they had no idea how much the stuff was going to sell for. They said a bunch of estimates. I think the estimate for the Enterprise D filming miniature, the 6-foot, was they thought it was going to sell for like $30,000. It sold for $500,000, right? They blew the estimates out of the water for all of this stuff. I mean, because for most fans, this was like their very first opportunity to ever kind of own a piece of it. Yeah, right. And I talked about this a little bit on my Trek Profiles interview, but the reason I am really into this stuff, and I think the reason why Christie's was so big is because like a phaser is never actually going to exist, right? Like there's never going to be a phaser. There's never going to be a tricorder. There might be a gadget in the future that sort of replicates its functionality, but like nothing that, comes from the USS Enterprise D. And so really the closest you're ever going to get to having an actual tricorder that has all the beeps and boops and lights up and like scans people is to have one of those original props from the show. And so when I found out that was like something that you could own, it very quickly sort of superseded a lot of the other things that I was interested in doing. Because I think as a collector, one of the things that we all try, like I think through collecting, a lot of what we're trying to do is we want to get as close to the source material as possible, right? Because it's not real, unless you were standing on the set in 1994 when the director screamed action and you were witnessing that in that moment, you're never going to be there. And even if you were, it's still not the experience you're looking for, because what you're looking for is not to be standing on the set on the Enterprise D bridge set in 1994. You want to be on the Enterprise D bridge in 2364, right? Like that's what you really want. Right. And you're never going to, that's never going to happen. And so I think for me, this stuff is sort of a way of getting as close to being there as you possibly can. And the props from the sets to me are like the one entree I have that connects those experiences, both filming on Paramount, stage 8, and this fictional faraway future universe where all these things happen, but in my head is all real and all these things really happen, and like fusing those two things together in like one thing that you can own.
I love that whole, your whole story. Cause I mean, I love watching those special features. I think it was on the original series DVDs, right?
Yep.
That whole Christie's auction thing. I love watching that whole sequence. Now, my question to you is how are you getting some of these items? Because obviously they had the Christie's auction.
Right.
So you must have been getting some of the secondary pieces, right, in your collection?
Yeah, so they did the Christie's auction. It was like it was probably the top half of 1% of everything they had. And they went, that was really successful. Like CBS made a ton of money off of selling that. So then they just turned around and said, they went to this company called It's a Wrap, who were running eBay auctions. Yep. And they went to It's a Wrap and they said, here's the warehouse, sell everything. And so for about 3 to 4 years, every single week, It's a Wrap were listing 40 to 50 items per week online on eBay of all of this stuff: props, costumes, set pieces, concept art, ranging from, things that were really small and ended up being really quite accessible in terms of price, and then things that were more iconic and therefore more expensive. And because at that point in time, this is not true anymore, because at that point in time, I mean, there was 50 new items every single week. So if you didn't get what you wanted one week, you were fairly certain that something like it was going to come around again, right? Because over the course of 15, 20 years worth of continuous production, they'd made a lot of tricorders and a lot of phasers and a lot of some of the stuff that you might want. Or there's going to be something else that's going to catch your eye. The prices at that point were much more reasonable. Now, of course, a lot of that stuff has settled into the hands of private collectors, but people's tastes change, new stuff becomes available. So like, for example, a bunch of the guys from like Micah Cooter and Doug Drexler and folks like that, they also had quite large collections of sort of things that they had just accumulated over the years. And then, in like 2010, 2011, they were like, you know what, this is just taking up space in my garage at this point. I'm going to make some money off of it. And they can sign it to an auction house to like sell it all off. Meanwhile, you have, really quite wealthy people who accumulate a massive amount of stuff. Their taste change. They go, I don't want this anymore. I want it out of my house. But of course, it's still really valuable. They can sign it to an auction house, sells that way. There is this sort of community of, it's not a big community. It's probably, we know a lot of each other. I would say there's probably only about 100 and 150 of us total of people who really collect this stuff more than just having like one or two pieces. And they range from the guy who bought the Enterprise D 6-foot filming model, unfortunately, is no longer with us, which was the Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen, right? Like Ben Stiller has a collection of TOS props. He talked about that he was the first episode with
Tawny Newsome and
the pod directive, the new official Star Trek podcast, all the way down to like a guy like me who, over the course of, I've been doing it for about 10 years now, probably has about 30 various different pieces, ranging from the very small to things that maybe are not so small. And there's, we sort of sell amongst each other, and then people come and they go from the hobby. So there is this sort of private market that is quite vibrant. And so you do find, Prop Store, for example, big seller of like TV and film props and costumes. They have auctions twice a year. There is always 10 to 15 Star Trek items in those auctions. Profiles in History is another big auctioneer for entertainment memorabilia. They will normally have about 20 to 25 items a year. You'll see things pop up on eBay. I mean, there are literally thousands of props and costumes out there because It's a Wrap sold them all. There is actually one guy who bought about 30% of their entire inventory. It is a small warehouse full of it in and of itself. This German collector called Martin Netter, in It's a Wrap had been sort of going for about 2-3 years. And he basically went to them and said, how much for everything you have left? And they said, I'm sorry, excuse me. He said, I want to buy whatever you have left to sell. I want to own it. And this was like 4 shipping containers that go on cargo ships to ship to
across
Germany.
The sea, yep.
Yeah, and they were like, I someone told me once how much he paid for it. It was a lot of money, and they gave him a price, and he said okay. He cut them a check, and they just loaded it all on a cargo ship and sent it to Germany. He's at Star Trek Las Vegas every year. He's the guy. He's always in, if you come into the dealer's room and make a right, he's always the guy in the back corner, big scraggly beard, German guy. He makes replica costumes.
Yes, I've bought costumes from
his
wife is there. His wife is there
too.
Yeah, and they're I've definitely bought stuff from him. In fact, I bought my son's Data costume when I bought my son's Data costume off that guy.
And the reason he knows how to make all of this stuff is because he has a bunch of the originals. He has so many costumes and so many props, he doesn't know what to do with them all. And he actually, when CBS does like traveling exhibits of props and costumes, CBS actually only has like 50 pieces left from the original shows. That's why when you go to STLV every year and they're like, we have a prop and costume display from, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, it's always the same stuff. Why? Because that's basically everything they have left. So when they want to like display other stuff, he's one of the people they go to because he has a bunch of stuff and like can just bring a wide selection of props and costumes to display. I'm not that guy. I don't think I'll ever have the money to be that guy, nor do I necessarily think I want to, because that sounds like all the guy does is complain about how expensive it is to like store all of this stuff. But you
bought it.
Yeah, right. But there's it's an interesting hobby. There are interesting people involved.
So let me ask you something. So we're in the age now of 3D printing. People can find almost anything. They can take screenshots of things from shows and recreate it 3D printing wise. So when you've bought these replica props in the past, do they come with like a certificate of authenticity that you've had?
Yeah. So fakes are everywhere. Right, for a few reasons. One, a phaser is a phaser, right? Someone knows how to make a phaser. In the same way that going all the way back to the original series, there has been a private market for authentic set used, production used, screen used pieces. There has also been a thriving market of fakes that are passed off as being original set used, screen used.
Right.
So it's one of those things where like you really have to know what you're looking for, and frankly also know the right people to ask who have experience with having made this stuff or are in a similar industry and or who have enough experience with it to be able to tell you what's real and what's fake. So everything that came out of Christie's, everything that came out of It's a Wrap, they all have certificates of authenticity. So if you can get one of those certificates, you know it's the real deal, right? Because it basically comes straight from the studio. But there's a bunch of stuff that's sort of left out the back door, you know, from Paramount while they were filming the shows before the big liquidation happened. And then there's been all the sort of pieces that came after of, I picked up a few pieces actually in an estate sale. One of the crew members who had worked on Deep Space Nine passed away, and he had a garage full of stuff. And somebody was, you know, I guess whoever his estate was, like basically said, look, this guy has a garage worth of stuff, figure out what it is and sell it all. And this guy kind of, he knew who the guy was who died, but he didn't know what it was that he had. And so he was just sort of listing this stuff on eBay. And so I managed to get some nice pieces out of that. I know it came directly from a crew member who passed away. I confirmed that he had in fact passed. I confirmed some of the details of the pieces. One of the things you can do is, obviously those certificates are great if they're the It's a Wrap or they're Christie's, but like if it's a certificate of authenticity from somebody else, like someone can just take a piece and write a certificate and say, this is a genuine piece. And like, so the certificate's not worth the paper that it's written on.
Exactly. Yep.
A lot of what it involves is, and the HD upgrades, particularly for Next Generation and TOS, have been really good for this, like painstakingly comparing the piece that you're looking at with what it's supposed to be on screen. A lot of times, because these props, you know, they get nicks in them or there may be little imperfections, like you can actually kind of compare the little marks that are on the prop with the little marks that you see on the piece on screen. And of course, if they line up, then of course you have the real deal, right? So like a good example of that is, I don't own it anymore, but at one point I owned one of the 2 Hero Kazon disruptor rifles from Star Trek Voyager. They made 2. They're basically trumpets where they cut off the end and stuck the like beak nose on and then weathered them all. And there were 2 that were made out of brass, and I had one of the 2 brass ones. And I matched it to a scene in Basics Part 2 where Brad Dourif, Lon Suda, is holding this. It's after he's killed the Kazon in the Jeffries tube. He pulls him out and he's like very distraught about the fact that he's murdered someone because he's made all this progress. And he holds the rifle up to his face. And just off of that screen cap, I could tell that the paint scheme, which was sort of like a weathering paint scheme, the marks on the paint scheme matched exactly the barrel of the rifle that I had, which it's the kind of paint scheme where you're never going to be able to replicate that exact paint scheme a second time. Yep. And there it was. So I knew that the piece that I was holding in my hands was the exact one that was used in that scene. So it's a lot of that kind of stuff. And it's also, you know, do you trust the person you're buying it from? If you know, a lot of the production guy who was the kind of chief prop maker for Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise, if you go into the Star Trek prop enthusiasts Facebook group, like he's in there, and you could just kind of throw something up and say, you know, do people think this is real or not? And of course, you get a lot of people who have very strong opinions without necessarily knowing what they're talking about. But then there are also a lot of guys in there who like built this stuff, who are then going to help you figure out, like, no, this isn't right because on the blinkies, for example, those are the ones that people really like, right? The tricorders and the phasers that like light up, and but they're also the most heavily faked because they're also the most expensive. And like it matters the order of the way the lights goes. What's the kind of join that they use on the hinge for the tricorder, right? What's the specific paint color that was used to paint the tricorder? Because if the color isn't right, then you know it didn't come out of the studio that made all the tricorders because they only use one kind of paint. So after doing it for 10 years, you probably learn a lot more than you probably ever wanted to about like how props were made and what to look for. But it does really help you to kind of figure out, okay, someone comes to you with a piece and says, look, I've got this great piece. I don't have any documentation to prove that it comes from the set. Are you interested in buying it or not? you then have to go through that process of like trying to figure out, is it real or not? Because you could end up spending quite a lot of money on a fake if you haven't done your homework properly.
So have you had a situation like that where you purchased something that was like a fake that you really kick yourself later on?
Actually, so yes, and it's a recent one, and I made the mistake of dabbling in a show that I didn't know. So one of the auctioneers was offering a set of patches from Babylon 5, and they said it was from the show, and I purchased Star Trek stuff from them before. But Babylon 5 doesn't have the same kind of wealth of information and kind of reference material out there that I could use to kind of verify this stuff. So I just sort of bought it. I have since discovered from having been offered a different set that in fact they were not from the show. They were patches that were made by the like Babylon 5 fan club, and they were offered to only a very limited number of people. So it's not a lot. It's not like you go on eBay and find a bunch of them. They are very limited circulation, but they are not from the show itself. And that was on me, and whatever, it's fine. I didn't spend a lot of money on it because I wouldn't have something that I was going to spend a lot of money on. Luckily, there were a couple of things I bought where I was like iffy about, and then went and talked to somebody, and they put my mind at ease and said, no, it's real because this, that, and the other. But luckily for the Star Trek collection, thus far, everything is, as far as I know, authentic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like if I'm going to buy something and I know that it's not real, and I'm going into it knowing that, then, hey, yeah, I'm just looking for something that looks similar to what it is. But yeah, if I'm going into it wanting something that's screen used, I can see why there's such a process involved that everyone goes through for it.
Because there's a massive price differential, right? Like if you're looking to, I'll lay the cards on the table. If you're looking to purchase a very nice replica of a Type 2 phaser from the Next Generation, that's going to cost you $100. If you're looking for a screen-used Type 2 Cobra head phaser from the Next Generation, the famous kind of season 3 through 7 flat version, that's going to cost you over $1,000. So that's the difference right there. It's not like the difference is like it's $500 or $600. It's an order of magnitude more expensive. And so you better be sure before you buy a piece like that you're not buying $100 replica for $1,000, right? That's the scenario that you're looking to avoid.
Yeah, exactly. And if I remember correctly, with It's a Wrap auction too, James Cawley got a bunch of that stuff too that he's got up at the set tour now. Yep.
And he is one of those collectors, right? I mean, he has a fabulous collection of original series artifacts, which are very difficult to come by because, there was no It's a Wrap for Star Trek, the original series, right? All of that stuff walked off of the set at some point during production. There was no official sales. And that is where there is a thriving market for fakes because, the 60s, 70s, and 80s, somebody at a convention comes to you and says, hey, I've got an original Type 2 phaser from the original series. Like, what are you going to do to go find out if it's real or not? You can go and watch the episode on your 12-inch television set, which is really grainy, and you're not going to see any of the details. So, there are some really notorious fakes that are out there that even today still come up in very, reputable auction houses. They think they've got original series Type 2 phaser or a tricorder or a communicator, and actually turns out it's one of these, fakes from the convention circuit in the 1970s.
So we've talked a lot about your methods of being able to go out and get yourself these specific things that you look for. Have you ever had any situations where there's the one thing in a lot that you need and you end up buying that lot and the 10 other things in it you don't really need, but you're only buying it for the one that you want?
I have done that with books. That was how I put most of my book collection together. I had been collecting books, when I was a kid. I wanted to read this one next, and I wanted to read this one next, and I wanted to read this one next. And then in my early 20s, I was like, you know what? Now I want them all. So I went on eBay and basically started looking for lots of Star Trek novels. And, people were selling them 30, 40, 50, 60 at a time. And I actually managed to end up with like 75, 80% of a full collection of Star Trek novels just from purchasing like 2 or 3 lots worth. But yeah, there was a lot of like duplicates within that. But I thought, you know what, I'll ultimately just end up selling these, which I did then so I got them, filtered out all the duplicates, and then threw all those duplicates off of Amazon. And I think at this point, I've maybe only got like 2 or 3 left out of that original. And there were probably 30 or 40 extras that I had at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask one question. I want to hear about the disaster cargo containers.
Yeah, so that actually was one of the earliest pieces that I had in my collection that wasn't like I started off collecting comm badges, and then I was like, well, maybe I could get other stuff. And there was this auction and it came up, and I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I'm never going to own like a miniature ship. So I'm going to go out and get like these miniature cargo containers. So for anybody who doesn't remember the episode, Disaster, the Enterprise D runs into trouble. Geordi and Dr. Crusher trapped in the cargo bay. There's a plasma fire and an unstable element in these cargo containers. So they basically make the decision, we're going to depressurize the cargo bay, suck all these cargo containers out into space, and then repressurize the cargo bay and we'll be fine. And so there's this one effect shot where they've piled all of the cargo containers up against the kind of door, and then they turn off the air and they get sucked out into space. And that actually was an effect shot done with these miniature cargo containers, where basically what they did was they made these little miniatures of those like big blue barrels that they had and the big yellow barrels that they had in the cargo bay set. And they poked holes in the top and bottom, and then they ran string through the like 8 to 16 of these cargo containers they had. And then they built a little kind of door, a little miniature door, and then they put a green screen behind it. And basically what they did was they stacked these cargo containers up, and they had a guy standing around the corner with a piece of string. So when they called action, the guy pulled the string, and then the cargo containers all whoop out. Looks like they're being ejected out into space. So yeah, I have one. I've got one of the blue ones and one of the yellow ones. I had no idea where the other 10 or 12 of them were from that episode, but yeah, I have 2 of them.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and with CG today, you wouldn't have those barrels. It would all be done computer generated.
Yep, it all would.
So you talked about there being this almost inner circle amongst you guys that collect screen use props. So safe to say you've built some pretty decent relationships with the people within this?
Oh, yeah. I have some great friends who I met through this hobby. Actually, a friend of mine, he's sort of my dealer in some ways. He has a collection of his own, has developed great relationships with people, other collectors, and when they want to sell stuff, he has sort of become this like de facto guy you go to in order to, make a deal with. He'll find you a buyer. And so I am like one of the people that he approaches with stuff where he's like, hey, I've got, somebody's looking to sell this piece. Are you interested in purchasing it? And some of the best things I have in my collection have come through that relationship. We have an established relationship of trust. I know that he knows his stuff. He knows that I know my stuff. And so there's no sort of funny business that goes on between us in terms of like replicas and fakes and stuff. And he's a very good friend of mine. I have another very good friend who is a big costume collector. And, we've all hung out in person at Star Trek Las Vegas. A group of us have gotten together a few times. So yeah, it's been a fun experience.
I like that. That is like the essence of what we're doing here. Being able to build these relationships where you're able to, bounce stuff off one another for quality checks, but also, hey, this person's told me that they're getting rid of this, and I know you're interested in that. So, can we set something up here? That's perfect.
That's exactly how it is.
right, so that takes us to our awards section of the show. As you know, each one of our collectors has set aside some things in their collection that they dib their most valuable in different ways. So the first award is the Kivas Fajo Award, the top collectible that you would love to have, but it eludes you. And what is that, Alex?
You know, for me, it's the stuff that I can't afford. Like, I would love a Type 10 tricorder, Hero Type 10 tricorder from the shows that had the full electronics kit in it, you know, that would like light up. I mean, there's also the sort of dream stuff where I would love to, you know, have $500,000 to buy the 6-foot Enterprise D filming model. That's probably never going to happen. But something like, you know, a major iconic hero piece from Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager that is one of those things where, like, even if you're not really a Star Trek fan, you'll look at it and you'll go, oh, I know what that is. That's that from this show. Like, I would like to own a piece like that eventually.
If money were no object, I think Jamie would be competing against you on that Enterprise D model.
Yeah, for sure. Are you going to do the Enterprise D build? Are you going to do the Eaglemoss?
I am probably not, just because
I'll do it for you, Alex.
Yes, please do. I will confess to not fully trusting that Eaglemoss will finish the collection. And if they don't finish the collection, you don't have, you know, you sort of don't have anything at that point. That's my fear about it, and it's stopping me from pulling the trigger.
That's Jamie's fear as well, because he's a completist. If you remember, whenever on Big Bang Theory, whenever someone would say something that bothered Sheldon, how he got that tick, that's Jamie when he's not able to complete something. So,
all right, so let's go to our next award, the Grand Nagis Award. So, what is the most valuable item in your collection, Alex?
So, valuable in terms of how much it cost me is probably so I have a again, it's another screen use piece. I have a Klingon Ducktug, the Dagger. It's one of the few metal ones. It comes from Deep Space Nine. It's big and it's heavy. It's basically a hero piece. And there were not a lot of them. And the ones that they did have when they did Enterprise, they repainted them to make them look older and more distressed. The one I have still has it's the original paint finish from Deep Space Nine, and it also comes with the holster as well, which is a cool addition.
That is nice. I find it's interesting when you're talking about screen use things, and even the replicas. People are so interested in the phasers and the Klingon weapons, just because they make, you know, no one's going to go around wielding these things for any reason. But man, do they look great on a wall.
Oh, sure.
I mean, they're so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, this thing's not going to, you know, it is very blunt. I mean, it is not a knife. It is, you know, just a very expensive desk piece. But it looks, I mean, really nice.
All right, so the final award, the Resican Flute Award, and we talked about the Resican Flute earlier. So what is the collectible in your collection that carries the most sentimental value to you?
So I have two. I talked about one, which is the original 1992 Captain Picard first Playmates action figure release. The second would be the very first screen used prop that I purchased, which was the one where I found it, where I was like, you can own this? Like, this is a thing that you can buy? Is the All Good Things type comm badge that was also used in The Visitor and Endgame, that sort of alternate 24th century comm badge design that the Star Trek Picard comm badges are sort of, you know, an homage to. That was the very first piece that I bought, and I was like, okay, I can see why people like this, and I will never own a house because I'm going to spend all my money on this. So, you know, fast forward to today.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's so good. I will say, Alex, this has been so much fun. You were such a phenomenal guest. I'm so
you.
This has been great. It actually make me feel better about myself because sometimes I wonder if I think I'm crazy, but people like you are out there, so I feel a lot better about myself.
Oh yeah, and we haven't scratched the surface. You guys, you want to? I'll come back. We can reminisce about Diamond Select. We didn't talk any Diamond Select or even Art Asylum. The original Diamond Select before they rebranded. As I say, if they have made it, chances are pretty good in some way, shape, or form it has passed through my hands at some point. So I'm always happy to talk Star Trek collectibles.
That's great. So where can people find you online, Alex?
So yeah, there's a couple places. Twitter is the platform that I use most. My personal account is at Alexander T. Perry. And then I also have a Star Trek news show called Weekly Trek, which is a weekly news show. It's about 40 minutes long every week. All the news that's fit to talk about in the Star Trek universe, and that is Weekly Trek, and you can find it on Twitter at Weekly Trek. You can also find the episodes published each week on trekcore.com.
Which is something that I forgot to mention when I was introducing you. Check out TrekCore because Alex always has some great articles on there. I especially liked during Picard how you were going back to the well and finding all of the stuff that was relating to past Trek and how it came up. That was Thursday mornings. I was watching that before I would start work. And then as the day went on, I was waiting for the article to pop up so I could see if I caught everything. So I love following that.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been a contributor to the site for a couple of years. And yeah, the Canon Connection series is one that I've been doing. I haven't been doing them every week with Discovery, but my plan is now, as we're recording this, the finale is tomorrow. Once the finale comes out, then I'll go back through the series and do those articles for each of the episodes, which will be fun.
Cool. Well, we are looking for collectors like Alex who would like to be featured on the Divine Treasury.
So you can find us on Twitter at divine_treasury, on Instagram with the same handle. We're both on Facebook. We can be found popping into and out of Camp Kittimer from time to time. So if you'd like to be on the show, please direct message us on those platforms, and please make sure you send your pictures and videos.
And you can also check us out on YouTube on the Trek Geeks Podcast Network page, where you'll find videos of our collection, pictures and/or video of some of the collections of our guests. And maybe from time to time, you will see us unboxing new additions to our collection. And who knows what else could pop up on YouTube.
If you enjoy the Divine Treasury, you can subscribe to the podcast by searching for us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts.
You can also support the Divine Treasury and the Trek Geeks Podcast Network by supporting us on Patreon. Get access to unedited recordings of every episode on the network, as well as other exclusive content and so many other awesome perks.
If you'd like to become a producer on the network or get access to the raw audio for the Divine Treasury, head over to patreon.com/TrekGeeks.
The Trek Geeks Podcast Network. No one talks Star Trek like we do. We'd also like to thank 5 Year Mission for allowing us to use their awesome music on the show. So as collectors, we all understand what's going on with 5 Year Mission. Year 1, Year 2, Year 3, Year 4, they've all been songs specifically for each episode of the original series. The songs are not parody, but it is essentially a love letter to Star Trek. So go out to 5yearmission.net, put some of their CDs in your cart, because as collectors, we all want that physical media to be able to put on our shelves. As we mentioned, you can pick up Year 1, 2, 3, and 4, as well as The Trouble with Tribbles and Spock's Brain. Make 5 Year Mission a part of your collection today.
In our next episode, and this is really interesting, Mike. I don't know if you realize this, but we're coming up on our 10th episode. And on that 10th episode, I'm really happy to say we're going to be talking to Bill Smith, the co-founder of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. So it's going to be awesome to have him as our 10th episode. So we look really forward to that. But until then, this has been episode number 8 of the Divine Treasury. The Divine Treasury, connecting through collecting.
Music for the Divine Treasury is provided by 5 Year Mission. They're writing an original song for each episode of Star Trek. Hear more of their music at 5yearmission.net. The Divine Treasury is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.